Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really jumping into something vital for anyone using the cloud, getting a grip on costs in Microsoft Azure. Our mission here is to give you a kind of shortcut, right, to understanding Azure pricing, the pricing calculator, and the total cost of ownership calculator. Basically, how to avoid those nasty bill surprises and make smarter financial moves. We've looked at a bunch of info, and hopefully we can bring some clarity to what feels, well, pretty complex sometimes.
It really can feel like a maze, yeah. But these tools, they're actually designed to bring some transparency, some predictability. They're absolutely essential, I'd say, not just nice to haves. You need them for budgeting, right? And importantly, for justifying those cloud investments.
Okay, so let's start with the basics then. Azure pricing, what's the core idea there? How does it work? And maybe where does it get tricky?
Sure. So fundamentally, Azure runs on a pay-as-you-go model, which
Yeah,
sounds great,
yeah.
right? Super flexible, scale up, scale down, only pay for what you use. But here's where the thinking needs to shift a bit. That flexibility is fantastic, but for your steady, predictable workloads, you might be paying extra for flexibility you don't strictly need. That's precisely where things like reserved instances or the newer Azure savings plans come in. They're not just discounts. They kind of force you to really understand your long-term needs. And the savings can be massive. We're talking potentially up to 72% if you commit for 1 or 3 years on certain resources.
Wow, 72% is, yeah, that's significant. But before we jump into estimating costs, you mentioned reserved instances. Are there common, like, pitfalls there, things people should watch out for?
Oh, definitely. That's a great point. The main pitfall is overcommitting or maybe not forecasting your actual stable usage accurately enough. You really need those consistent workloads to make the commitment pay off. Once you have a decent idea of that baseline, then the Azure Pricing Calculator becomes like your best friend. It's this web tool, totally free to use, and it lets you estimate your monthly costs before you launch anything. You can pick services, VMs, storage, databases, whatever, configure them, choose regions, tiers, all that stuff. And you can even export it to Excel to play around with. It's all about planning ahead to avoid sticker shock.
Got it. So that's for estimating new stuff. But what about the bigger picture, like moving existing workloads from, say, your own data center? That seems like a different calculation.
Exactly. That's where the total cost of ownership, or TCO calculator, comes in. Its whole purpose is different. It's designed specifically to help you compare running things on premises versus running them in Azure. And it goes deep. It looks beyond just servers and software. Makes you think about maintenance contracts, electricity, cooling for your server room, IT staff time spent on just, keeping the lights on instead of innovating. These are often hidden costs people don't fully account for. So the TCO tool helps build that solid financial business case for moving to the cloud or maybe not moving certain
Right,
things.
uncovering those hidden operational costs.
Yeah.
So, taking together the pricing model understanding, the estimation tool, the TCO comparison, these really change how companies can approach the cloud, don't they? Yeah.
Absolutely. They bring transparency and predictability to what used to be kind of a black box. Before tools like these were mature, organizations really struggled. Cloud bills could be all over the place, and justifying that shift from own hardware was tough. Now you can make data-driven decisions, less guesswork. It lets you scale smartly while keeping a firm hand on the budget. It's a real game changer for strategy.
Okay, so for listeners thinking, right, I need to use these more, or maybe they're just starting out, what are some smart, practical strategies?
First off, always use that pricing calculator before you deploy anything significant. Model it out. And definitely take advantage of the free stuff Azure offers. There are free service tiers, plus usually a decent credit, like $200, for new accounts to experiment without spending. And if you do have those predictable workloads we talked about, seriously look into reserved instances or savings plans. The savings are often too big to ignore for the right workloads.
Makes sense. And what about once things are actually running in Azure? How do you keep costs in check day to day or month to month?
Good question. Continuous management is key. First, use tags. Tag everything. Resource groups, which are like folders for your Azure stuff. Tag them with things like the project name, the environment like dev or prod, the cost center. That makes the Azure cost management report suddenly make sense. You can see who or what is spending the money. Then actually review those cost management reports regularly. Look for spikes, look for opportunities to save, and monitor your usage. Are your virtual machines too big for the job they're doing? That's a super common waste. Downsize them if you can. Also, use auto-scaling where it makes sense. Let Azure automatically add or remove resources based on demand instead of just running large instances all the time just in case.
That all sounds very practical.
Yeah.
But are there any Gotcha. Is any limitations to these tools we should be aware of, things that might trip people up?
Yes, definitely some things to keep in mind. Crucially, the pricing calculator gives you estimates. They're usually good estimates, but they're not guarantees. Your actual costs depend on real-time usage. Unexpected traffic spikes, for example, can change the bill. Pricing also varies by region, by the specific service tier you pick. It can get complex. And the TCO calculator, its accuracy depends entirely on the quality of the data you put in about your on-prem setup. Garbage in, garbage out, right? So yeah, inaccurate input can really skew the comparison. And remember, both are planning tools, not real-time monitoring systems. You still need Azure Cost Management, Azure Monitor, things like that for the day-to-day tracking. Oh, and one more, be careful with some advanced services. Sometimes there are less obvious costs like data transfer fees between regions or out to the internet. Those can add up if you're not watching them. Always read the pricing details.
Okay, good points to remember. So it sounds like whether you're just starting out, maybe a small startup, or you're a large enterprise, really digging into these tools gives you a solid framework for budgeting, for planning migrations, and for keeping costs optimized over time.
Exactly right. By using the pricing models correctly, leveraging the calculators for planning, and following those best practices for management, you really empower yourself. You get control over the expenses and can actually maximize the value you get from Azure. It's about building solutions that are both powerful and cost effective.
That makes a lot of sense. So thinking about that TCO calculator specifically, here's something to consider. What hidden costs in your current tech setup, maybe your on-premise stuff, might that calculator reveal that you haven't even thought about? It could be way more than just the server hardware itself.